News!
Okay, we'll start with this per tweet from Women's Fight News. Sandy Ryan versus Terry Harper winner could end up facing Michaela Mayer, according to Eddie Hearn via an IFL TV interview he just had. As if the fight itself wasn't reason enough to get excited, Ryan versus Harper for what is Sandy Ryan's WBO title. The winner of the fight may go on to fight Michaela Mayer, who by all rights should be a newly crowned IBF welterweight champion, but it's not the case.
It's not.
We all know what happened. She got robbed in Liverpool. And, I don't hate Natasha Jonas. Natasha's not the one who scored the fight. The judges scored the fight, but she's the one who reaped the benefit. She's the one who's got the IBF title when it should have went to Michaela.
Developed a soft spot for Michaela, and I'm not going to apologize for that.
She's a good kid.
Yeah.
And she works hard.
Yeah.
She deserved much better than she got in Liverpool, and that's just the reality of it. A lot of people feel that way, and I said it then. That's not the end. That's not the end of Michaela Mayer. It doesn't have to be. Though we do have to question, what's her relationship with Top Rank like now that she's coming off her second professional loss?
Are they going to cut her loose?
The way they've been outsourcing her in her last 2 to 3 fights. They loaned her out to Queensbury, then they loaned her out to Boxer 2 times. She hasn't fought on American soil in well over a year, and she hasn't fought on a Top Rank show, a show that Top Rank was promoting here in America. She hasn't fought on one of those in a long time.
Really, since before the Baumgartner fight. The Baumgartner fight, that was on UK soil. That was on the undercard of Shields versus Marshall, which was a Boxer show, not a Top Rank show.
We know that Bob Arum doesn't want to have to send one of his fighters over to Eddie and over to Matchroom. How many instances in the past have you seen where Bob Arum has openly expressed his aversion to sending top-ranked fighters over to DAZN and Matchroom? Though given that Michaela's coming off her second professional loss, that she hasn't actually fought on a top-ranked show in a long time, her last 4 fights have been either on Boxer shows or on Queensbury, that they don't seem all that invested, they don't seem all that pressed.
Granted that those shows were broadcasted in America by way of ESPN, Top Rank's broadcast partner, they still weren't Top Rank shows.
Any way you slice it, you still had no aversion to loaning out this particular fighter to other outfits, to other promoters. So don't all of a sudden get possessive when Eddie has opportunities for your fighter. He's got more opportunities for Michaela than Bob does.
Don't get in the way.
She could get the winner of Ryan versus Harper, and that is a bigger fight than any fight that Top Rank can provide her with. And I know that there's a possibility that she could run it back with Natasha. She did good numbers in the UK with Natasha.
Boxer was bragging about him a few days afterwards. They did good TV ratings.
But Natasha also said that this could very well be her last year in the sport. She also said that she's eyeing Jessica McCaskill, rather the winner of McCaskill versus Habazin, set to go down in April for 2 of the 4 major titles at this weight. And I feel like before Natasha entertains a rematch with Michaela, she's going to see what happens with that fight.
She'll see what happens with the winner of that fight and see about making a fight with them. I feel like that's what she's going to do before she entertains a rematch with Michaela.
So if you're Michaela, and there's no guarantee you get another crack at the apple with Natasha, this is something to consider, something to think about. The winner of Ryan versus Harper, which is already made, you understand. Natasha's next fight, we don't know when that's going to be, and we don't know when she's going to make it, but we do know when we'll see the winner of Ryan versus Harper. We'll know the outcome of that match soon enough.
We will.
And so will Michaela. Now, ideally, before Michaela is allowed to challenge for an alphabet title, it would be ideal if they get her a little tune-up fight, a little rebound fight to get her back in the winner's bracket. I don't think at this stage in her career, Michaela wants to bother with those kinds of fights, those kinds of foregone conclusion fights, but whether she likes it or not, she needs it.
The question there is Top Rank going to get her a rebound fight? Do they even want to? If Matchroom is willing to get her a rebound fight, would she be willing to cross over?
The bottom line is, it's not over for Michaela. Doesn't have to be. Controversial loss or otherwise, there are still opportunities out there for her. Men's junior middleweight news and update via Boxing Scribe, Dake Jonovan. Update confirms Bohachuk versus Fundora is now for the full WBC title. Jermel has been labeled a champion in recess and is now only in possession of the WBA title, which could soon go to the winner of Madrimov versus Kurbanov. If you needed any further indication that Jermel Charlo, after going all the way up to 168, he's not going to boil back down to 154, not having made a career-high purse, not having made the money that he made, and having already spent the amount of time that he spent at 154. After going up to 168, he's not coming back down to 154.
No.
For anybody that was holding out hope
No.
that they might see a Crawford versus Charlo fight or a Zoo
No.
versus Charlo fight,
No.
how many times and how many videos the last couple of weeks and months did I tell you, after that Canelo fight, he is done, and he's not coming back down.
Not the 154. Maybe he'll come back to 160 whenever he does come back, because we don't know when that is.
It's not like he's in high demand after the uninspiring performance that he put on against Canelo Alvarez. That literally is one of the most sought-after fights, anywhere in between 147 to 175. He actually got it, and he shat the bed.
Maybe he'll fight Carlos Adames. Maybe he'll fight the winner of Lara versus Zarafa.
In all the ways I don't think Jamel is going back down to 154, I don't think his brother, Jamal, is going back down to 160. You know, he's still got the WBC title there. I think he's going to vacate it, and I think it might go to Carlos, at which point Carlos might defend it against Jermell. I could see that happening. I could also see Jermell fighting the winner of Lara versus Zarafa, a more opportunistic fight.
For the WBA, a more winnable fight.
Could see him doing that if and when he comes back, whenever that is, because as stated, he's not in high demand. As it pertains to Fundora versus Bohachuk, it's a good fight. It's a very good fight, set to go down on the undercard of Zoot versus Thurman, which was recently announced. Fundora versus Bohachuk, that's a shootout. That's a shoot-'em-up fight between two very aggressive action fighters, volume punchers. Sergey Bohachuk, he's the kind of guy that puts you in a situation to where you've got to knock him out, because if you don't, he's gonna knock you out.
He's a strong puncher, but to some degree, so is Sebastian. However, in the case of Sebastian, he's still coming off that knockout loss to Brian Mendoza. He never rebounded off that loss, you know.
Didn't recover. That was a tough knockout loss to that guy. What a tough guy. He's going from being knocked out by one tough guy to sharing the ring with yet another big puncher, another aggressive guy. I don't know what Sebastian's been doing with his time. I don't know if he's been working on things. I don't know. I just know the guy he's got in front of him, he's a very aggressive guy. And the stakes have been raised. This ain't for no interim title anymore. This is for the full title, the full WBC title, which has given rise to some criticism that why should Sebastian be afforded a shot at the WBC title when he lost his last fight?
It's gotta go to somebody.
Main criticism being that he lost his last fight. Should he have not lost some ground in the WBC's rankings as a result of losing that fight? How could he still be in a pole position to fight for an alphabet title having lost his very last fight?
Just feels like the WBC's making it very easy for him, the way they often do when PBC fighters are involved. You will remember that after the third Deontay Wilder versus Tyson Fury fight, they left him there at number one, sat at number one in their rankings for well over a year.
There is something to be said about that, though. I suppose that the silver lining is whoever wins this fight, whether it's Sebastian or Sergey, there will be a new WBC champion at 154. The title will be in circulation, and that could lead the winner of this fight to face the winner of Zoo versus Thurman in the main event.
If Tim takes care of business and he dispatches Keith Thurman the way everyone's expecting him to, if he retires him,
Tim can unify with them. They're on the same side of the street. It would be the biggest fight in the junior middleweight division right now.
No.
So even if Sebastian getting this opportunity is somewhat unethical, that is something to look forward to for the fight fans. In men's super middleweight news, veteran trainer Freddie Roach, who's training Jaime Munguia now, he says Munguia is a complete fighter who doesn't have poor defense. He predicts an 8th round knockout. That's not how many others would describe Jaime Munguia. What does Freddie see that they don't? Or what do they see that he doesn't?
What?
Boxing is a sport that is jealous. Fernando Beltran, the head of Zanfer Promotions, told BoxingScene.com in an interview, "You need to be in the sport 100% or not at all." Freddie is a dedicated trainer and always at the Wildcard Gym all the time. Roach has made his Hollywood, California-based gym a globally known boxing landmark due to his decades-long work with the likes of Manny Pacquiao, Mike Tyson, and Munguia's promoter, Oscar De La Hoya, among countless others. Jaime is co-promoted by Fernando Beltran and Oscar. We are very confident in Freddie Roach and his corner. He has the experience. He has the knowledge. We're excited. De La Hoya told BoxingScene.com and other media in an interview, Jaime better be ready, because it's going to be a tough tough fight against John Ryder, who's coming off a tough fight with Canelo Alvarez, a tough loss. He got knocked down 2 times, got his nose broke.
It should be a fan-friendly fight. What will be Jaime's first fight with Freddie Roach in his corner. And he spent a lot of time with Eric Morales. Up until now, veteran fighter Eric Morales has been training him. But Eric, God bless him, he was a great fighter, but he didn't have much experience as a trainer. And before that, I think it was Jaime's father that was training him.
It's very interesting when you think about it. Jaime's got a lot of fights, I think over 40, but for the first time in his career, he's going to be working with someone as experienced as a Freddie Roach, that in some ways, this will be the first time he's had a real trainer. You could look at this through that lens.
It's not just the fight. It's not just the fight that you want to pay attention to, and I think it's going to be a great fight, a fan-friendly fight that won't disappoint, but you want to pay attention to how Jaime looks, how he performs. What, if anything, is Freddie adding to his repertoire? He's an offensively minded trainer, and Jaime is an offensively minded fighter.
Could be a good pairing, as Freddie Roach is not worried about Munguia's weaknesses. There's a big thing out there that he has poor defense and so forth. He doesn't have poor defense. We work on those things every day. He's a complete fighter, and that's why he's going to win the fight, Roach told BoxingScene.com in an interview. I wonder if that's what Freddie would have said before he started training Jaime. I think his work ethic is a lot better than most. He comes to the gym every day, wanting to work. We work really well together. I push him, and he pushes me. We work the mitts together, and a lot of combinations. People who say he's a single puncher and stuff like that are full of shit.
If you saw the Dennis Hogan fight, the Takeshi Inoue fight, or the more recent Sergey Derevianchenko fight, Jaime does get hit. He does get hit a lot. And listen, it's a boxing match. You got 2 guys in the ring. They're in there for 36 minutes. There's punches that are going to get in. That's established. But with Jaime, he does get hit more than some other fighters. And even as far as pressure fighters go.
Even as far as pressure fighters go, he does get hit more than some other pressure fighters.
When he's barreling forward, trying to put punches together, he needs to tighten up a bit, and hopefully Freddie has helped him work on that. A pressure fighter's defense ain't gonna look like a pure boxer's defense.
Not expecting Jaime to walk through the rain without getting wet. But for a guy who's barreling forward, you want to slip punches, roll punches.
Guard up and catch and counter punches.
While you close the distance, because, as stated, a pressure fighter's defense ain't gonna look like a pure boxer's defense. Pure boxer wants to stay on the outside. It's all about managing the distance at which the fight is being fought and maintaining it, whereas the pressure fighter, he wants to close the distance. But you don't want to get peppered with shots while you're doing that.
Taking punishment when you're doing that. With a guy like Jaime, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You just want him to tighten up a bit, sharpen up the things he's already good at.
We'll see what effect having Freddie in his corner has on him, though ultimately, I do have him winning tomorrow's fight.
By hook or by crook, he's gonna beat John.
He might actually stop him, because John was put through the ringer in his last fight. It's good optics.
If he can stop him where Canelo didn't, and I know that context is key.
But it's still good optics if he can stop him. Elsewhere in the sport of boxing, good news out of the men's light heavyweight division. Callum Smith has confirmed that he will not be retiring from boxing following his defeat to Artur Beterbiev. I need the right fight to get me motivated. I'm not retiring. Anthony Yarde is definitely a fight that does motivate me. By now, I'm sure most of you have heard that the Saudis are planning a Matchroom versus Queensberry show that will pit Matchroom fighters against Queensberry fighters, a long-standing rivalry in the UK boxing scene where Callum Smith can make a splash, once again, get himself back in the winner's bracket, make some good money, and reinvigorate his career. I said it immediately after the fight. There's no shame in losing to Canelo. There's no shame in losing to Artur.
There's no shame in those losses. All that shows is that Callum Smith doesn't shy away from a challenge.
Where some other fighters don't want no parts of a guy like Artur Beterbiev. They won't fight a guy like that willingly. Callum did. He could have went after Dimitri Bivol, and at worst, he would have lost the points decision. He chose to take on the beast from the east. He chose to do battle with the monster, and even if he did come up short, who hasn't? Who hasn't so far? The sport of boxing needs fighters like Callum Smith. Moreover, the light heavyweight division needs him.
Beyond the upcoming Beterbiev versus Bivol fight,
The latest as it pertains to that fight, and the latest as it pertains to the light heavyweight division, The story is that there are no impediments, there are no obstacles, there's nothing at this point to get in the way of that fight, which could go down over the summer months. But you have to think ahead of that, you have to think beyond that. Those may be the last two remaining champions at this weight, but depending on who wins, they may not stay there. They may not stay there at light heavyweight. I mean, what if Artur knocks out Dimitri? I don't think he's going to keep boiling down to 175. He might move up. He might go to cruiser. He's been at light heavy for a long while.
What's that got to do with Callum?
It's not just about Callum, it's about the light heavyweight division. The entire light heavyweight division. Very soon, the reset button could be hit there. And the future of it, the future at light heavyweight, it's in the UK. It's across the pond. That's where the money is, and that's where the money's going to be when you consider you have fighters like Callum Smith, Anthony Yard, Joshua Buatsi, Dan Aziz, Lyndon Arthur, Ben Whitaker.
The future at light heavyweight, the future of it, it's across the pond. It's in the UK.
Could be Callum's future if he plays his cards right. He doesn't have to retire. There's no need. After just 2 professional losses, there are a lot more opportunities out there, especially with these cash injections from the Saudis. There are plans to make a Matchroom versus Queensberry show, and just beyond that, one thing I've come to appreciate about the British boxing scene, the Brits and their boxers, they're not as hung up on unbeaten, unblemished records as the Americans are. What is the remnant of the Floyd Mayweather era and how much emphasis was placed on him staying an unbeaten fighter? It still resonates here today in the American boxing scene to where a fighter just isn't going to be as popular if he's got 1 or 2 losses in a column, whereas in the UK,
they're really not that hung up on that stuff. I mean, Derek Chisora, he's got losses in the double digits, but whenever he fights, people show up.
Think about Amir Khan and Kell Brook when they finally fought. Everybody knew they were over the hill. Everybody knew they were past it. By that time, they lost several fights, the both of them, but people still wanted them to settle it. They still wanted to see it, and they showed up at the box office, they showed up at the gate. It's a healthier, more fertile boxing scene than this one is.
Because of those boxing fans, their interest in those boxers, those fights, what it really harkens back to is previous eras of boxing in America, in the United States, where everybody didn't expect the fighters to be perfect.
Nobody's perfect, or mostly nobody. And the vast majority of boxers are not going to leave this sport with perfect records.
Boxing's not a video game.